So what's up viewers, today we are doing a biology chapter, that is right, a biology chapter which name is life processes. Now, you know it is the first chapter of bio. I know you don't like bio, but it is a very interesting and a very important chapter. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and start this chapter. First, let me tell you the definition of life processes. So, the introduction part is the maintenance is a significant part here. It means to be going on even when we are not making any movement. These maintenance processes that happen in our body are known as life processes. So, we are like sitting here, you are sitting here and watching my video, and while you are watching my video some maintenance processes are happening in your body for which is necessary for you to live. These maintenance processes are regularly going on. These are basically termed as life processes. So these processes need to prevent and break down energy is needed for them, and the source of energy is nutrition. So these maintenance processes do break down and prevent microorganisms from entering. So I mean they perform various tasks for which is necessary to maintain your body. Now where they will get the energy to perform these tasks? So the energy needed for them, and the source of energy is nutrition. Of course, when you eat food you get energy. Utilizing that energy, your body maintains itself. So nutrition is a vital part here to provide you and maintain you energy. So this nutrition that we desire is mostly from carbon based molecules. Everything around us is made up of carbon. Most of the compounds around you are made from carbon. So the nutrition that we derive is mostly from carbon based molecules. A series of chemical reaction takes place in our body, oxidation, reduction, etc., to break down molecules. So this is what I have told you about maintenance processes. The process of using oxygen from outside the body for the breakdown of molecules which releases energy is called respiration. So this was the introduction part which I have told you. I have told you the definition, which is the maintenance of our body. And to maintain our body you will need energy which is provided by nutrition, and you acquire nutrition from carbon compound. And the process of using oxygen from outside the body to break down of the molecules which releases energy is called respiration. We will study this in detail later in the chapter. First, let us cover the topic known as nutrition. So what is nutrition? We have just studied that if your body needs to maintain, it needs energy, and energy is given in the form of nutrition. So the nutrition purpose is fulfilled in many ways. For example, in plants they take substances from inorganic surroundings such as carbon dioxide and water. Inorganic here means, organic means carbon, and you know the meaning of inorganic, without carbon. Other organisms use complex molecules and break down into simpler molecules. They do this with the help of simple enzymes. So what is it says here that the plants utilize simple molecules to convert them into complex molecules, and some organisms use complex molecules to convert into simpler molecules. You will find this part very confusing here, but I will make you understand very clearly later with the help of a formula. Let us now first study autotrophic nutrition if you want to learn it. So carbon and energy requirement for autotrophic nutrition are fulfilled by photosynthesis. You have all studied photosynthesis in previous classes. Photosynthesis is a process by which the plant acquires its food, but this is not the correct definition. The correct definition is when these plants take carbon dioxide and water in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight and convert them into water and carbohydrates. This is the correct definition of photosynthesis. So the plants take carbon dioxide and water. We breathe oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide is taken by plant, you all know, and water is given through them by roots. So they take carbon dioxide and water and then convert them in the presence of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll plays a vital part. Without chlorophyll, photosynthesis cannot happen. and also without sunlight photosynthesis cannot happen. So chlorophyll and sunlight are essential for photosynthesis. So they convert carbon dioxide and water in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight into carbohydrates, which is basically plant nutrition. So this is the formula I was talking about. I have just told you that they take carbon dioxide, water with the help of sunlight and chlorophyll, and they convert them into carbohydrates, which is glucose, and its formula is very easy: C6H12 and O6. It is the most easy formula, C6H12O6. This is also known as glucose, and it also releases oxygen which we inhale. That's why we say plant more trees, so that you get more oxygen. So carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll gives glucose plus oxygen which you inhale. Now this part, sometimes the carbohydrates which are not used immediately are stored as starch. So it is not necessary that you consume that you utilize all the food that you are consuming. Some food is stored for later purposes. In plants, this food which is stored for later purposes is known as starch. So the carbohydrates which are not used immediately are stored as starch. And in NCERT, in board exam, it will ask you a question: what are the three main processes of photosynthesis? So it is very simple: absorption of sunlight, conversion of light into chemical breakdown, and also reduction. Next is activity 6.1, to show sunlight is essential for photosynthesis. So based on what I have told you about plant nutrition and photosynthesis, there is an activity in NCERT to show that is sunlight really necessary for photosynthesis? Can photosynthesis happen without sunlight? So let us look at this activity. The material required is a potted plant, iodine, alcohol, water and burner. So the process: first pluck one leaf of a potted plant and keep it in a dark room for several days, so that all the starch is gone. So you need to take a leaf, keep it in a dark room for several days so that all the starch is gone, and which is necessary for the experiment to continue. Then take the leaf and cover its middle part with a black paper. Keep it in sunlight for a few hours. So what it is doing now, all starch is gone. Now you are covering the middle part of the leaf with a black paper, and we are keeping it in a sunlight for few hours. Now after that, remove the black paper and boil the leaf in some water to make it soft, and boil it in alcohol, Now first let me tell you the precaution: keep alcohol test tube immersed in water beaker, because alcohol is highly flammable. You cannot boil with the alcohol directly. So then after boiling in alcohol, the chlorophyll of the leaf will be gone. We are removing everything. We have removed starch, now we have removed the chlorophyll. Now put a few drops of iodine in it. Now this is the part where you will understand the whole activity. You will observe that the blue-black color on the leaves, you will notice that the blue-black color will show on the leaves, on the spots where starch would be present. It would not be present in the middle part because it did not receive any sunlight. Result: sunlight is essential for photosynthesis. So what happened in this activity was, first we removed all the starch from the leaf by keeping it in a dark room. After removing all the starch, you covered the middle part of the leaf with a black paper. We did necessary steps, for example boiling in water and alcohol. Then we tested that that with the help of sunlight and photosynthesis, the leaf produces starch. So will the starch be produced in the black part? Because the black part is not receiving any sunlight. If it will not receive any sunlight, then of course starch formation would not happen. So that's what happened here. When we removed all the starch, then we did the necessary steps and kept it in sunlight. Starch was formed on the part of the leaves where sunlight was received, but it was not formed in the black part. This shows that the sunlight is essential for photosynthesis. Without it, starch cannot be formed and photosynthesis cannot happen. So this was a major activity, and of course it can come in exam. You need to remember it and learn it. Next, stomata are tiny pores present under the surface of the leaves. They do gaseous exchange and also transpiration. So stomata are the tiny pores. You have studied that they are tiny pores which are present under the surface of the leaves. Their major job is to gaseous exchange, the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and transpiration. You know what is transpiration? Transpiration is the evaporation of water from the surface of the leaves. Basically, it is the loss of excess water which is produced in the leaf through the process of evaporation. So this is the diagram of stomata. Now my drawing is not very good, but you can understand easily here that these two kidney bean shaped like things are guard cells, and the middle part which is opening is known as stomatal pore, where the exchange happens, and these small pores are where the chloroplast is present. Chloroplast which contains chlorophyll. We have successfully completed plant nutrition, in which we covered photosynthesis, activity, stomata. Now the main topic comes heterotrophic nutrition. Nutrition in human beings, how we consume food. You take the food through your mouth. The alimentary canal stretches from the mouth to anus. First part of nutrition is our mouth. When we take food, then the salivary gland in the mouth secretes saliva amylase to digest the food. So it secretes saliva amylase to digest the food. Generally the functions of these enzymes is to break down the food into smaller parts. When you take food, you need to break it down into smaller parts so that it passes through your digestive system. So this salivary amylase softens the food and breaks the starch into sugar molecules. Now this point is very necessary. It says that it breaks the starch into sugar molecules. The function of the salivary amylase is that the starch which is present in the food is converted into sugar molecules, which is its main job, and it is ready for the passage. So it will ask you three functions of saliva amylase in the exam. You will write that its function is to soften down the food, to break it into smaller parts, and also to convert starch into sugar molecules. These are the three functions of saliva. So next, it is ready for passage. Now that after the food passes through the esophagus, and it is necessary that the food passes along. So next, after your mouth, the food comes into your esophagus. Now in the esophagus, the food cannot pass down directly. There is expansion and contraction of the muscles, which is also known as peristalsis. To push the food downwards, there is contraction and expansion of muscles, which is also known as peristalsis, which is necessary so that the food passes downwards. Remember this phenomena, peristalsis. It can ask in exam, what is peristalsis? You will write that the expansion and contraction of the muscles is known as peristalsis. So after this, the food enters the stomach, where various digestive juices are secreted for digestion. So after the mouth, it passes through esophagus, and after the esophagus, its first stop is stomach. Stomach is the first place where the food is digested with the help of digestive enzymes. So it secretes two digestive enzymes, which is pepsin and hydrochloric acid. So first I will tell you hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid acts as an acidic medium for pepsin to act. What is pepsin? Pepsin is also an enzyme digesting food. So for pepsin to act, it is necessary to make an acidic medium. Without an acidic medium, the pepsin cannot act on the food. So hydrochloric acid acts as acidic medium so that the pepsin acts on your food. Now you have studied that hydrochloric acid is a very dangerous chemical. It can burn your hands and legs. So there is a special covering which is known as mucus, which protects the walls of stomach from the excess release of hydrochloric acid. Then after the stomach, the small sphincters are present, which let the food pass in small amounts to the small intestine. So you cannot pass all the food directly to small intestine. Small sphincters are present which regulate the flow of the food to the small intestine. Here various other processes takes place in the small intestine. So small intestine, the food is further digested. The food is generally in acidic medium from the stomach with the help of hydrochloric acid. So after that it is converted into alkaline medium with the help of bile juice from the liver, which also break large fat globules into small ones. So when the food enters into small intestine, it needs to be converted into an alkaline medium. So bile juice comes from the liver into the small intestine and converts the food into alkaline or basic medium and breaks the larger fats into smaller fats. So in exam it will be asked, name two functions of bile juice. You will say that it converts it into alkaline medium and also breaks large fats into smaller ones. Next, the pancreas also secretes pancreatic juice called trypsin for the digestion of proteins and lipase for the breaking down of fats. So liver secretes one juice, pancreas secretes two juices. One juice is trypsin, which is used for the digestion of protein, and the other juice which it uses is lipase, which is used for breaking down of fats. I know these names are difficult, but you just have to learn that trypsin breakdowns proteins and lipase breakdowns fats. Next, proteins are converted into amino acids, fats into fatty acids, and carbohydrates into glucose. Now these are the three main points which happen in the small intestine. So you know that the proteins are converted into amino acids, and the fats are always converted into fatty acids, and the carbohydrates is converted into glucose. For these three steps are necessary for the digestion of food in the small intestine. So next, this food is absorbed by small intestine, which has large villi. So digestion has happened, all the enzymes have acted. Now the next step is absorption. The small intestine has various hair-like structures known as villi, which helps in the absorption of food. Now it is specialized for the absorption of food by two characteristics. The main characteristic is it has increased surface area and more blood vessels for transportation. So first of all, it has increased surface area, which increases absorption, and more blood vessels, which regulates the absorption faster. These are the two advantages of villi, which can also be asked in exam. Now all of the nutrients are absorbed and the rest is passed through the large intestine. The rest of the food is further passed into the large intestine, where more water is absorbed and urea is passed through anus. This is the end of nutrition in human being. So here you can see a diagram. This is the esophagus. The food passes through here where peristalsis happens. Then it enters stomach, where hydrochloric acid is secreted to make acidic medium for pepsin to act, and mucus is protecting it. Then it enters the small intestine. Now in small intestine, the bile juice from the liver secretes into the small intestine to convert the food into alkaline medium and break large flat globules into small flat globules. And then from the pancreas, here there is pancreas, I have not labeled it, comes the pancreatic juice, which secretes two type of juices, trypsin for breaking down proteins and lipase for breaking down fats. Then after the digestion of the food, this food is absorbed by the help of villi in the small intestine, which has increased surface area and more blood vessels. After the absorption have taken place and the food is passed down and mixed into the blood, the rest of the food is passed into large intestine. Here the outline you can see is the large intestine. Here the water is absorbed. This was the end of heterotrophic nutrition. Now in exam it will ask you the question, differentiate between autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. You will write The first point, they make their own food, everyone knows. And this type, heterotrophic, they depend on autotrophs. Autotrophic, their process is very simple. Remember, I only told you about photosynthesis in autotrophic nutrition and one equation, and I have to tell you so much about heterotrophic nutrition, the food, all the digestive enzymes. So obviously heterotrophic nutrition is more complex than autotrophic nutrition. So the second point is their process is simple, their process is complex. Autotrophic nutrition use inorganic raw materials such as CO2 and H2O. Heterotrophic consume complex carbon compounds and break down glucose into smaller particles. Now this is a very important point which is necessary for you to understand, that the nutrition in autotrophs and heterotrophs is also opposite. Now in autotrophs I told you that they take carbon dioxide and water and convert it into glucose plus oxygen through the process of photosynthesis. What happens in heterotrophs is the opposite of autotrophs. They break down glucose into water, carbon dioxide and energy. Plants are converting carbon dioxide and water into glucose, and we are breaking down glucose into water, carbon dioxide and energy. So their nutrition is opposite. We are providing plants with carbon dioxide, so they are utilizing it with the help of water to convert into glucose, because glucose is very important for plants, and we are breaking down the same glucose in our body to convert into water and carbon dioxide because it is necessary for our body. So heterotrophs break down glucose into water and oxygen, into water and carbon dioxide, and plants convert water and carbon dioxide into glucose. So these are the two differences. You can understand it, pause the video, see it for as long as you want. You just have to understand it. It is not difficult at all. So let us move on to the next topic. So this is the last stage of nutrition in heterotrophs. Now I have told you that they break down glucose and various absorption processes. Now how is that glucose converted? Now the glucose, first step is glucose is converted into pyruvate in the cytoplasm. So remember, it is glucose is converted into pyruvate. Pyruvate is a carbon molecule which is being converted into the cytoplasm. Now this pyruvate can be utilized in three ways. The first way is in the absence of oxygen. So what humans do is that they break down glucose in the presence of oxygen, but if there is absence of oxygen, it is known as anaerobic reaction. So in anaerobic reaction, the pyruvate is converted into ethanol plus CO2 plus energy in yeast. Ethanol is basically alcohol, and in yeast there is anaerobic reaction. Yeast does not use oxygen and it releases only 2 ATP. ATP is the currency of energy, adenosine triphosphate. So in yeast, it converts in the absence of oxygen, it converts pyruvate into ethanol plus CO2. Now I will tell you the case of humans and animals. So here we convert glucose in the present, we convert pyruvate in the presence of oxygen. So in the presence of oxygen, H2 and CO2 plus energy is released. You have learned we break down glucose into H2 and CO2 plus energy. So anaerobic reaction happens, and instead of 2 ATP, 38 ATP energy is released. Here 2 ATP energy is released and we release 38 ATP energy. So here is an important point. Anaerobic reaction generates very much more energy than aerobic reaction. And in humans, anaerobic reaction also happens when there is lack of oxygen. For example, you are running. For example, there are athletes, they are running, and there is a lack of oxygen in your body when you run. So if there is a lack of oxygen, then lactic acid is formed and 2 ATP energy is released. This is the cause of muscle cramps. So it can ask in exam that why do you have muscle cramps? You will say that due to excess of running, there is absence of oxygen which leads to lactic acid and only 2 ATP of energy which leads to muscle cramp. So here pyruvate is utilized into three ways. First two are absence of oxygen, which has anaerobic reaction, which both releases 2 ATP. In yeast it releases ethanol plus CO2. In humans and animals, in muscles it releases lactic acid plus energy, and in presence of oxygen it releases H2O plus CO2 plus energy. Here you can see H2O plus CO2 plus energy. So these are the three ways in which pyruvate is utilized. Next we will move on to respiration. So respiration, first in respiration I will tell you diffusion. You know the diffusion, when gas moves from higher concentration to lower concentration. So the direction of diffusion depends on the environmental conditions. For example, in plants at night no photosynthesis is happening, so it leads to lossage of carbon dioxide, and in day it is required for photosynthesis, so instead there is intake of carbon dioxide. Now it is told you that plants provide you with oxygen. Now they have told you only half, 50% true fact. They only provide you with oxygen at day. In night they provide you with carbon dioxide. Now people haven't told you reason why at night they release carbon dioxide. This is because the photosynthesis doesn't happen at night, it only happens in day. So when the photosynthesis is happening in day, you know that they utilized carbon dioxide and water. So in day there is intake of carbon dioxide, and in night there is no photosynthesis, so there is release of carbon dioxide. They are not taking carbon dioxide, instead they are releasing. That's why at night they release carbon dioxide. That's why it is said that don't sleep under the trees at night. Next, some organisms use oxygen dissolved in water for these purposes. As content of oxygen is low, their breathing is much faster than normal animals. So some organisms use dissolved oxygen in water for breathing. Now the content in water is very low, so their breathing is much faster. In exam it can ask why aquatic animals have faster breathing. You will say that the content of oxygen is low, that is why. Next, this is the diagram and mechanism of respiration in man. Now through this diagram I will explain you mechanism of respiration. In human beings, air is taken through the nostrils. Here it is filtered from fine hair-like projection, so that unwanted dust particles does not enter. Then this air passes through our throat, where rings of cartilage are present to prevent it from collapsing. So air is passing through the nostril. Here the rings of cartilage are present to prevent this trachea from collapsing. Then the air is passed to lungs. In lungs the passages are further divided into small balloon-like structures called alveoli. So when it passes through the rings of cartilage, here there are lungs, and it is further divided into small passage-like structures which are known as alveoli. These are balloon-like structures. What happens here? Here the exchange of gases takes place in the alveoli. As soon as we breathe in, the air enters the alveoli, and the blood carrying carbon dioxide comes and releases this CO2 in the alveoli, and at the same time oxygen is taken up through the blood vessels in this alveoli. I will only teach you to this part. You must be very tired by watching the video. I know, I am also a kid. So we will continue the next part in our next video, and I will cover transportation. Thank you very much friends. Please subscribe and like my channel. Thank you.